Hello, my name is John Rose, and in this video I'm going to take a closer look at how to make a really tasty salad by balancing 4 main flavors. And they're the same 4 flavors that every chef everywhere around the world uses to make things taste good. And those 4 flavors are 1, sweet, 2, salt, 3, acid, and 4, fat. Under the sweet category, we got all the fruits to choose from. We can even go to dried fruits. We can go to some of the sweeter vegetables. We can go to cherry tomatoes. We can go to beets, bell peppers, carrots. We can use coconut water. We can use orange juice. A lot of things can fall into that sweet category. We don't have a shortage in that area. And then under the next category, the salt, we can go to Celtic salt. That's my favorite. Has 82 minerals in it. We can go to Himalayan salt, we can go to olives, we can also go to sea vegetables like dulse. I like to put a little dulse on my salads. I used to use kelp a long time ago, I haven't used that in a while, but we want to put something in there salty. The next category is acid. Usually we go to lemons and limes for that. Grapefruit will also work. We can also go to sauerkraut and apple cider vinegar, which those would be 2 things to have on handy in case you run out of lemons or limes, to have a backup. That's always a good thing in case of an emergency. And then the last category is that fat category. I'm not afraid of fat. I don't like to keep my fat restricted down as low as 10%. I think that's actually unsafe for some people. And then for some of you guys, you almost have to start with that type of low-fat diet because your liver may not be working really well. In fact, a lot of people who gravitate to that diet may do so more so because they feel better on it, and that's because their liver is having trouble with digesting fats. But when we go to the fats, we got all types of oils, and I'm not a really big fan of using oils, but in the beginning it's a good transition. Even something like olive oil, which is probably the least of the ones I would choose. I know some people like the flavor, and we have to be practical with this. We have to make it work. So in the beginning, as a transition, we can use something like olive oil, but I would prefer, if I was going to use an oil, to go to something like flax oil or hemp oil. Those make really good salad dressings. But then so do the nuts and the seeds. Sometimes, again, if you have liver problems, you might want to soak those nuts and seeds prior to using them. But then we can also use coconut mead or olives. Olives are a great way to go because it's also a salt. And it's also the highest of all your fruits and minerals, especially zinc, which is sometimes hard to get on a raw food diet. Those would be the acid. And then, so back to the fats, again, the best of all would be the avocado. So again, we want to balance all 4 of these. Now, when I make a salad, I've told you guys in my other videos that I usually use 3 main types of leafy greens to have a little bit of variety. Something like romaine lettuce would be one of them, and then red leaf or green leaf, and then kale. I like to balance those out, and that's the bulk of my diet, about a pound of each of those. And then I like to put in some tomatoes in there. I always like tomatoes in almost everything, so I put about a pound of those on there. And then what I use for my salad dressing will vary. Sometimes I'll put a couple ounces of sesame seeds in a coffee grinder, grind that up, put it in a jar, and then add some spices into it. So that would be the 5th category we could add to these 4 flavors to make things tasty. There's all types of spices we can use, whether it's dill or thyme or oregano, whatever you like. We can use all types of spices, cayenne pepper, ginger, garlic, anything to spice things up, a little hot sauce maybe even. Dave's and Sandy sauce, I like to put a little dash of that every now and then if I go that direction. And then just put that, add some water to that and shake it up and pour that on there. But if I really want to make things simple, I'll just grab a couple avocados and put that on all there. And now when you mix all this together, the very last thing you want to put on your salad is the acid, like the lemon juice. And that's when you stir it all in and make it thicker. So that's a very simple way for me to make a salad and make sure that it tastes well. If you don't have the acid in there, it's not going to taste the same. If you don't have the salt in there, it's not going to taste the same. If you don't have the fat in there, it's not going to taste the same. Unless you're able to eat that thing right out of the ground, and then you don't need anything, do you? It tastes so good right when you freshly pick it, you don't need any dressing at all. But for the rest of us, if we don't have that luxury, we've got to kind of spice it up a little bit. And these are some of the things we can do. And if you look at a lot of recipe books, they're very, very complicated. In fact, if you look at Norman Walker's book, and I showed his book a while back on one of my book suggestions, one of his books, he wrote 8 books, one of them was on diet and salad. He has 70 salad recipes in there, and they're very Complicated. There's a lot of ingredients. There's like 12 ingredients in almost every one of his salads. In fact, I glanced at the very first one before I came out here, and there was, I believe, 7 ingredients in it. If we count a tomato as a vegetable, there'd be 6 vegetables and 6 fruits, although tomatoes are like bell peppers. They're a non-sweet fruit. And the 6 vegetables he had carrots and cabbage, red cabbage, and celery and lettuce, and radishes, and then of course the tomatoes. If you look at the portion size, he had 2 ounces of carrots and 2 ounces of celery and 2 ounces of lettuce, and not 2 ounces, 2 tablespoons of each, I'm saying, and then 2 tablespoons of red cabbage, and then he had 5 radishes. He had 1.5 medium tomatoes. And then on the fruit end of this, he had, get this, 2/3 of a medium persimmon. Can't help but chuckle with that one. 2 tablespoons of raisins. 1/2 a large banana. Again, I can't help but chuckle on these recipes. And 2 large dates or 3 small dates. Then he adds a whole big apple in there and 1/2 of an avocado. Now I gotta admit, that sounds like a really tasty recipe, but I can't see myself making that kind of a recipe for myself. That just doesn't seem practical. If I had a big family and I'm making enough for 12 people, then that would make sense to be able to use all those ingredients and not have them go bad on me. But if I'm only gonna use 2 tablespoons of lettuce at a time, my God, how long is that head of lettuce gonna last me? So as you can see, the contrast in our salads between someone like Walker and myself. God, if we looked at all of his ingredients, let me think, there were 4 vegetables that were 2 tablespoons, and then 2 tablespoons of raisins. So there's 5, 10, 2 tablespoons. There's 10 tablespoons there. Then you have 5 small radishes, 2 to 3 dates, 1.5 tomatoes, 1 apple, 2/3 persimmon, 1/2 banana, and 1/2 an avocado. Now that really does sound really tasty, but contrast that to mine. How long would it take to make his recipe, and then how many different ingredients would you need, and how long would it last? Compared to me, I grab 3 heads of lettuce and I just rip it apart with my hands. Whereas Walker suggests cutting everything up in small pieces as you can. And that flies in the face with what natural hygienists are saying. Because as soon as you cut something open, it begins to oxidize. So they even go as far as saying, don't cut up anything, just have the lettuce all by itself, have the tomatoes all by itself, and then eat it whole like that. So I don't like to do that because obviously you can't mix all the flavors in. But as you can see, using Walker's approach, this is quite involved. I got me a crowd all of a sudden watching me.
Sorry.
It's all right.
We're looking for a lost dog, sorry.
What does he look like?
It's a big yellow lab.
Okay, those are easy to spot. I'll
No
grab him if I see him.
No problem.
Alrighty. So as you can see, it's Walker's recipe, very complicated. You got to cut everything up. For me, I just grab it. I don't use a knife when I cut into the lettuce. I just rip it with my hands. It only takes a little bit of time to make my salad. To make a more complicated salad, obviously it would take much more time. And if that's what you want to do, fine. For me, several things happened to me when I found raw food. One is the main thing is I became so obsessed that I didn't want to spend time preparing food. I really loved the raw food lifestyle because it was so easy to just grab a bunch of persimmons and there you go. You can take them on the run, put them on the bike, put them in the car. They're easy, convenient, no preparation. And prior to the raw food lifestyle, I was somewhat of a pretty decent cook. I liked to cook. It was something I enjoyed doing, but for some reason I have not embraced the raw recipe approach to eating. It's just too time consuming. Raw recipes usually are a lot more time consuming than cooked recipes. And again, I'm just too obsessed with time. I don't want to waste my time making things. I want to spend my time reading and doing videos and helping you guys, because that's where the true pleasure in my life comes from, is helping people and gathering information and doing everything I can on the hero's journey to make this world a better place. And I can guarantee you, my friends, once you learn how to balance these 4 flavors, you can make any salad taste good. And again, how do you make a salad? Well, You put together things you like. That's all there is to it. But remember, you got to balance those 4 flavors. And when you can balance those 4 flavors, my friends, you're in for a treat.